Welcome to Caribbean Thought Lecture Series. This is Lecture 14. We explore the issue of corruption as a challenge of development to the Caribbean. Previously, the previous lectures that we did, there's a previous lecture that we did looking at Life and Death, or the film Life and Death, and that's in audio. But that particular lecture looks at the IMF and the World Bank, and we also did a poll asking whether or not you believe that the Caribbean development was affected by the IMF, the World Bank, WTO, NAFTA, colonialism, and of course, or corruption. And of course, when you watch the film Life and Death, it would suggest more the IMF and the World Bank. Of course, there was one commenter who said the government of Jamaica and the Caribbean governments were weak-kneed and they lacked vision to have accepted structural adjustment with conditionalities. And that could be true when you look at what the Jamaican government did in the 1970s and 80s and up to the 90s. In terms of Jamaica and the Caribbean has had a tremendous amount of injection of investment, but what have they done with the money? According to the Caribbean. So we're going to look at the issue of corruption. Corruption has also plagued post-independent countries of the global south. And so this particular lecture will be looking at corruption. And the lecture is at the Jamaica Theological Seminary, and I hope you enjoy the lecture. It promises to be quite interesting and intriguing, but it will provide a lot of fun facts and also challenge you to do something about corruption in your own country or your community. This is the Neoliberal Podcast. I'm Ronaldo McKenzie, and of course, this particular lecture is available for free. Thanks to the Neoliberal Corporation at theneoliberal.com, and also the Neoliberal Round YouTube channel at YouTube at Ronaldo McKenzie, or the Neoliberal Round at Spotify or any podcast feed. Please subscribe for free and continue to support us by going to anchor.fm/theneoliberal/support. Check out our store page at store.theneoliberal.com, and please get your copy of Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance. That's available worldwide in any platform. I'm Ronaldo McKenzie, your host and creator, and I also happen to be the facilitator for the class. Please send us a feedback and let us know how we can improve.
Such hypocrisy and duplicity. Pharisaical and politics. I am Ronaldo McKenzie, and welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal Round Podcast.
Good evening. We'll start momentarily in a few minutes. It's 7 o'clock here in the US, but I believe it's 6 o'clock there. I had joined the class, started the class a bit earlier than expected, not realizing that
you don't have the same time.
Yeah, daylight saving time. It was changed recently on Sunday. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir, seen it.
Great. Today we are going to be dealing with corruption, talking about corruption. We're going to be looking at corruption. But before we get into that, we also want to quickly look at what we discussed last week, and there's some initiatives, some action. You know, when we do learning, they said learning, you're not just amassing or accumulating knowledge or sequencing information or interacting with information, but it's when you're also adjusting. As you learn, you adjust behavior. So, when we look at what learning is, we think about learning it involves some kind of conditioning behavior. And of course, they said human beings learn differently from other animals because we are not like other animals. Animals learn instinctively. Human beings, we learn intelligently. And so we've come up with a definition for learning, speaking to instincts as against intelligence. And that's what differentiates animals, because they said human beings are also animals. But yes, we are all animals, but we are known as what is known. They call human beings the human race in terms of animals. We are of the human race, not in terms of white, black, Indian, Oriental, so on and so forth, in terms of that kind of race. But we are race in terms of we are of what characterizes the human race is that they are thinking beings. And if you study Darwinism and the evolutionary theory, whether or not you believe in the evolutionary theory, but it is knowledge. It is knowledge that you, as human beings, we don't hide from knowledge and from information, because human beings arrive in the world, and as we develop our thinking and our understanding and so on and so forth, human beings want to know more about how we have come to be and how we can chart the future. And I think trying to understand how we have come to be is important also for our eschatology, for our psychology, because human beings grapple with the issue of death. Human beings grapple with the issue of their demise. And we talk about human beings have flight and fight responses, and not just human beings, animals. But we talk about what differentiates, is what characterizes the human race, our ability to think. And we talk about Homo erectus and Homo sapien, and so on and so, moving to an upright man to thinking man, and we talk to we are intelligent beings, as against animals. Animals, they say, that are instinctive. They learn instinctively. Once they are born, there's some genetic coding that predisposes them to information that they need. And based on their organizational development, you see how animals when some people like to compare animals with human beings in terms of child rearing. That is wrong. Human beings we don't behave instinctively. Okay? People like to draw inferences between animals when they want to make a case about. We are not animals in the sense that we don't behave instinctively. We are intelligent beings, but yet still there are some people who like to draw comparisons between human beings and animals, the human race and animals. But but you're making comparisons. You're making comparisons between. You call that a question begging epithet. A question begging epithet is a fallacy. A fallacy. Okay, a fallacy and something for a false logic, a false way of arriving at truth. You using pseudo appeal to association. And when you talk about pseudo appeal to association, we're talking about pseudo appeal to association. You're comparing apples to banana or apples to oranges. People talk about that. Making comparisons between two indistinct things as if they are the same, and then coming to a conclusion. When you come to a conclusion based on a question begging epithet, a fallacy, a false logic, a logic that does not make sense. Say, for example, making comparisons between two indistinct things and then coming to a conclusion. The conclusion is not a conclusion because the conclusion is based on a false premise. Of course, that's also part of critical thinking. When you think about critical thinking, you look at the weight of somebody's argument. And somebody attacked me some time ago, and I said to them, we're quick to attack. Somebody attacked me, and I'm going to actually raise that issue. I'm going to open up my screen. I'm not dressed for the class as yet because I'm not fully ready for the class, but let me share my screen. But when we think about, somebody attacked me on Twitter some time ago because the Jamaican government, and we can talk what's going, by the way, let's talk about what's going on in Jamaica in terms of minimum wage and what's going on in terms of minimum wage. The Jamaican government has increased minimum wage 29%, or there's a plan to do so. I responded by saying, this is great news. The Jamaican government is increasing minimum wage by 29%. This is great news. Somebody responded, yes, until you look at the information much more clearly, but until you study it more seriously. Look at it 2 more seconds and you realize it's not really good news. And I said, no, it is good news. What's there to study? I said, it is good news. It's good news. I said to you, there's room for, even if there is room for improvement, this is still good news. Why is it good news? It's good news because because inflation is at 9%, single digit, while they are increasing minimum wage double digit, more than 20%, the highest increase in minimum wage in Jamaica in years. So that is good news. They are increasing minimum wage more than they are increasing and it's okay, which is outstripping the inflation, because inflation affects the power of your dollar. Inflation affects your ability to vote with your dollar. Inflation reduces the value of the money you have in your hands. Okay? And we thought, so if the Jamaican government, I said, this is great news. So the person responded by saying, you know what, you are right. You are right. I never thought about it. I never thought about it like that until we start to delve into the numbers. I said, yes. And I said to him, that is fine. I won't attack you. Some people are quick to attack you when you make an error, but I won't do that. I won't attack you because you make an error. That's fine. I said to him, we have to talk through it. We talk through the issues. We talk through issues. I always say to my friends, people don't like to engage other people. People don't like to talk. And some people, we talk about people are quick to resort to violence. People are quick to resort to violence in a lot of, we talk about in Jamaica, there's an initiative about in terms of teaching people conflict resolution skills. There's in Philadelphia, there is a new initiative called the Group Intervention Initiative, or some GVI or GIV, something of the sort, Group Intervention Initiative. I wrote about that some time ago. But there's an initiative where they try to reduce gun violence by targeting gangs in certain communities. Group Initiative Intervention. And I said, I have lost my train of thought. I don't know what I was talking about now, why I brought up the group initiative. Yes, and I said to you, we have always had conflict resolution issues. We have always had conflict resolution mechanisms. They used to teach conflict management and conflict resolution at Jamaica Theological Seminary, and the Mennonite Church was known to be a church and a movement that promotes conflict management, conflict resolution, empowering the language, people's ability to speak through things. And I talk about pushing things to its logical end, pushing things to its logical end. But some people do not want to do that. They resort to violence, or people's inability to speak through things, people's inability to communicate effectively. People's inability to communicate effectively can indeed affect their ability to, and their willingness to talk through things, and so on and so on and so forth. But we talk about learning is important, and learning is about changing behavior. Okay. But not only are we to learn, and there's also the saying, to whom much is given, much is required. And of course, you guys come to the learning process. You have goals. You have personal goals. You have career goals. You also have religious and spiritual goals. Some of you may have psychological goals as well, in terms of what you hope to get out of this program at JTS and this particular class. And of course, I say to you, this class is revolutionary because it is practical. We're dealing with issues that affects Caribbean, heavy issues, deep issues. Okay, and it begins by critically understanding who we are as individuals, which involves revisiting our history And we spend quite a lot of time in this class referencing and going back into history. And because we're not just looking at Jamaica, this class is not just Jamaica thought. I'm driving home that idea home. It's Caribbean thought. We're looking at what's happening, what has happened in the Caribbean thinking. So so I've spent some time over the last class talking about Haiti, because Haiti provides a very interesting situation when you start to study Caribbean. And a lot of the Caribbean countries share similar relationships in terms of the experience of Caribbean, the experience of structural adjustment, and the experience of debt, the experience of their size, and so the experience of a people who is now part of the New World, people who come from places such as Africa and people who have been mixed up with Europe and so on. We share some of those, and some Europe, whether it be Denmark or France or Spain or England, a European country, has helped to shape the Caribbean or Caribbean lifestyle in a sense. And so we have spent some time to revisit that. And now, of course, the new power block is the US. The US is the dominant country, and the US continue. And so what we continue the issue, we see how power operates. Power continues to dominate, to manipulate. The US got their independence, but of course, slavery continued, discrimination continued, and hegemony continued in the world. Colonization has continued and even after the fall of the Soviet Union and what's going on in Russia today and so on, where countries are trying to reclaim their dominance. What's going on with Russia invading Ukraine? What's going on with China and their intentions to invade invade Taiwan? What's going on with Israel and Palestine is still an issue today. So these are some of these things never end, and so that is why we look at it. So when we look at issues, not only are we developing our knowledge and broadening our understanding of the issues, but we also want to develop ways. How do we, when we have a proper understanding of the issue, understanding the issue, also looking at the strategy behind a particular position. We talk about when you study Caribbean thought, you also start looking at the dynamic of the Caribbean, our position in the world, and the peoples of the Caribbean, and who we are, and who formulates that identity and that representation. And so we talk about, the Caribbean has had mixed reality. We have talked about that the Caribbean, we talked about we being dependent capitalist nation who have mixed reality, struggle with stagnation or instability in their economic development and so on and so forth. And we watched the film Life and Debt, and we had John Castro talking about American politics, and so there's much blame to be thrown around in terms of what has created the reality to the Caribbean. But when you watch the film Life and Debt, we also have to look at the Caribbean leaders, politicians as well, and all the leaders who have helped to forge our independence. When you talk about looking at diverse currents in the Caribbean and looking at the past, one of the issues that has dogged us or that has affected us is the issue of corruption. And the issue of corruption is on the rise. And we want to talk about corruption today in the class. And I'm going to be sharing a film on corruption. Now, the film I'm going to share with you is a film that was produced by the National Integrity Agency back in about 2014. And before the National Integrity Agency, Jamaica's corruption index far exceed that of 60. Far exceed, and you're going to know, and we're going to talk about the corruption index. And this is great. I don't know if you guys has ever been to a class where you are exposed, where you discuss corruption, but we discuss it not flimsically, not whimsically, but we want to use the data. We want to look at what has transpired. So we're saying that, yes, one of the questions that we asked the class, and even of Haiti has a GDP. Yes, we say that these countries are poor, but they all have received hundreds of billions of dollars in terms of assistance, in terms of GDP, income. They all have income. But when you look at what's going on in Haiti, about 50% or over 50% of the population is poor. And of course, I study income inequality in the Caribbean, in the global south. And when you look, so income, so there is the issue of there is a wealthy class in these countries. And they also are part in terms of the negotiation and the strategies and what takes place in these Caribbean countries and what takes place in countries. The issue of corruption is the issue of power. The Caribbean position today is because of power. And once you study Caribbean and Caribbean thought and critically looking at who we are as a people and why we are as a people, and you also are going to look, you're going to look at it is the issue of power, the strategy of power to create race, the strategy of power to create structural adjustment, the strategy of power to create crisis, OPEC or whatever crisis it may be, okay, and then create solutions to build, okay, that leads to bureaucratic phenomenon that does where only only a few subscribe to the laws or to the rules and others are largely above them. It is an issue, okay, and power. So when we talk about the issue of strategy and we talk about connectionism in the world, nepotism, and the new kind of capitalism in the world. Nepotism, connectionism, neoliberalism, neo-capitalism. And by the way, I say to you, there is no country that is a capitalist country today, and there's no country that's a true communist country today. What they are a facade. They are pseudo. We talk about pseudo. Pseudo means false. Okay, they are fake. They claim to be capitalist countries because capitalist countries is about hard work and savings. Okay, but no, hard work is for the few, while the others use stealth, connectionism, nepotism, and strategy or corruption. And so we want to talk about corruption. We talk about strategy. Well, what is the strategy? The strategy that we talk about, there are various ways that people use to maintain power, to increase power, to establish power. And it could be a strategy of coercion where Russia is using force. Colonization and slavery was about forced labor, okay? Or there is corruption. As the world becomes more sophisticated, now we are seeing people are using corrupt means. So we talk about strategy, but this, okay, it's a strategy of strategy of corruption, a strategy of coercion. Today we're talking about corruption, okay? And so we want to define what is corruption, and you're looking at a map of the world showing the corruption perception index of 2022, the corruption perception index of 2022. And the image, I got this image from the Transparency International, the Global Coalition Against Corruption.
Sir, you're muted. I'm not sure if you're muted on purpose.
Thank you so much for alerting me. I apologize. I'm saying to you, you're looking at the corruption perception index of 2022. But I think they have a new corruption perception index for 2023. Usually they do it with usually they are a year behind. But there hasn't been much changes in the corruption perception index. The perception level that we see in 2022 is there is hardly any movement or changes in terms of corruption. If anything, there's been no changes, or the world has largely remained corrupt or more corrupt. Okay, but let's continue with the lecture. Corruption. So there is a global coalition against corruption. There is a global coalition against the intervention into Haiti by force. But there's also a global coalition. There's also a global justice movement, the GJM, the Global Justice Movement. And I talk about the Global Justice Movement, and I study the Global Justice Movement at length in neoliberalism, globalization, income inequality, poverty and resistance. In I think it's chapter 9 or 10, I talk about the global justice movement. How effective is the global justice movement to bring about equality in the world, to fight against income inequality in the world, since the Bandung conference or since the 90s, you find all these moves. So we talk about that. But we won't talk about the global justice movement today. We will get into corruption, and we will also play a 1 hour documentary. But before we get into the 1 hour documentary, we want to quickly revisit what happened in class last week and to let you know what's going on as it relates to Haiti. And I shared with you, some of you, a document via email that you guys can sign. And but I want to talk about how you guys felt about. I sent it to you. I want to know what you guys feel about what's going on in Haiti, the presentation from Mr. Concanen, and let you know what we are doing, what I am doing, what you can do. Okay, as we learn about things, we're not going to sit on knowledge. Okay, we're not going to sit on thought. Okay, we should express it. Okay, so what we're going to do is, fine, we have learned about what's going on in Haiti. We have learned about what's going on in what has affected the realities of the Caribbean. What can you do about it? What can I do about it? What are we doing about it? Of course, we talk about communication, using podcasting and digital media and social media to bring awareness to what's going on in society. That's one way. Okay, and as you learn, you're writing letters to the Gleaner, publishing your ideas and your thoughts, coming up with solutions and recommendations as you learn them. But okay, that's one of the ways. Other ways you can do that is you can do your own podcast as well. That's another way. That's one of the things you can do. You can have your even at your churches and in your community groups, have little forums, little discussions that talk about what's going on in Haiti and what's going on in the Caribbean, really critically looking at what's going on in the world today and what your church and what you can do in your community. And it begins by having the conversations. It begins by having discussions in your local, in your family, at the table, on the buses, because people are not really sitting down to have the serious conversations. And sometimes they're having a conversation, but they don't know where to look to get the information. You guys have that at this level, at the collegiate level. It is, that's where you guys as academics come into being, because now as you come to the class, you're being exposed to information and where to find them. Say, for example, what's going on in Haiti. Now you know where to look. And now we're working on a petition. You guys can get people involved in that. What's going on in terms of corruption? By the way, what is Jamaica's position? What is Jamaican government position on Haiti? What is our position? What are we doing? Secondly, what's going on in terms of corruption in the world? What has happened with the National Integrity Agency? Okay, and why is it that we have either dropped, or how are we doing in terms of that? In terms of crime and violence, what works? What doesn't work? What can we learn from other people? And so you want to expose. So as we come into the class, I said that this class is also like a lab. It's a lab. And I said it's kind of crazy how we are operating in a lab. When you think about a scientific lab, things may not go as you plan. And I said to you, when you come to the class, the course outline, that's the course outline, but nothing is set in stone. Okay. And one of the greatest ways that you can get a grade from somebody tried to be facetious, said, Ronaldo, what about quality assurance in terms of how you teach your class and how you're tracking your students and so on and so forth? How I'm tracking my students, I'm not tracking my students based on what on the standards and and the way how society has developed for people to quantify people in a very general way. People have different and individual perspectives. I'm as a post-millennial, it is you, it is I, it is all of us. We are the people that create change. We are the change agents. They call you disruptors and so on. But every generation comes to the table with something new. Every generation comes with something new, and you push in. But they once thought that the world was flat. Now we learn it was round. And when people try to change that, if you try to say anything else, you would be killed. You were seen as a disruptor. But now we have come to understand that the world is not flat. Okay? So I say to you, it is you, when you get information, don't just hold on to it. Use it to empower people, you empower yourself. Of course, you want to push it to its logical end. Okay? You push the information to its logical end. So we want today's class, we want you guys to be affected by the information and to promote the information And just so you know, how you engage the material, your discussions in the class, and of course, the final paper in the exam is what I will use, and your engagement. And many of you have been engaging, and that is really good. Now, today we talk about corruption, but I'm going to take a quick 5 minutes break. And then when we come back, I will get into the lecture. But while I take this 5 minute break, I have a question for you. The question is, what is Jamaica's corruption is measured on a scale of 0 to 100. Corruption. If you are 0, it means you have your corruption, you're a clean country, there's no corruption. If you are at 100, it means you're highly corrupt. What do you think Jamaica's corruption index is today? Or we don't have 2023 levels, 2022. What do you think Jamaica's corruption index is today? And why do you think so? What do you think Jamaica's in fact, let me change that since we're studying Caribbean. What do you think Jamaica's corruption index is today in relation to other Caribbean countries? And why do you say that? What do you think what is Jamaica's current corruption index? And why do you make that determination? Okay? What is Jamaica's corruption index? Now I only see 30. Oh, now we have 40 people in the class. Great.
You don't have to answer that question now, but we may ask it in the exam, but that's why I really have to show this video talking about the corruption perception index. It's a lecture that we had previously. I had a lecture on corruption, but I can't find it. I think it was pulled down in error. But what is important in terms of as you think about the corruption perception index is that majority of the Anglo-Saxon countries, their corruption, they are not as corrupt as formerly colonized or black and brown countries. When you look at the formerly colonized countries or black and brown countries or Caribbean countries compared to other countries in the world, I think they are more corrupt based on the corruption perception index, which is the CPI. Okay, which is quite interesting. Maybe they're dealing with the issue of poverty. And so as a result, where there are high levels of poverty, high levels of income inequality, and so on, probably it results in a higher levels of corruption. That's one. Of course, we talk about the issue of relative deprivation, which is a Marxist relativist theory that says that where you have high levels of income inequality and poverty, you also have high levels of crime and violence. Corruption, okay, corruption can be described as something that is violent, or it could be, but not necessarily physical violence. Or corruption is indeed a criminal is a crime in many countries. Some countries that does not have laws and that promote corrupt means, then of course that's a different argument. But this is quite interesting as you start to think about the issue of corruption. And it's very important that we think about corruption when we start to think about who is to be blamed. We watched a video last week that places blame on the Jamaican government or on the IMF or the World Bank. Well, the World Bank, really. The video is really, I mean, you might have one instance where a gentleman who was interviewed said that the Jamaican government was weak-kneed and they lacked vision to have allowed those conditionalities. Okay, the Caribbean government to allow those conditionalities in order to get a loan, that it suggests that they were weak-kneed and lacked vision. That's the only incident, but the majority of the film, Life and Death, was talking about the IMF and the World Bank and how the IMF and the World Bank has created the conditions in the Caribbean to be dependencies. But what we're talking about here with the issue of corruption, we are moving the blame, we are exploring the blame, not just are we looking at the IMF and the World Bank and the external, but about corruption within Jamaica, within Haiti, okay, within Cuba, within the Caribbean, that has also created the problem. And which has, and not just corruption, now we're talking about a history of corruption. This is how post-colonialism looks at the legacy of slavery, how the Caribbean, how Black and brown peoples are dealing today with the legacy of slavery. We also have to talk about the practice of corruption, okay, the culture of corruption, which has also created the Caribbean experience or Caribbean positioning today, which also is a result maybe as a result of the legacy of slavery. Yes, but let us continue. I need you guys to, I need more people. I hope we have the full class today. It promises to be exciting. So I'm showing you that screen. I don't want to give away the answer, so let me not skip. So that's the question for today. And let me bring up my, the lecture for today. By the way, the lecture presentation is also available on JTS Online. If you, there is I think Caribbean. Today's class is entitled, by the way, I missed a long lecture, a bit of lecture, which I need to get back to in terms of defining nationalization. I need to define some key terms. I need to define, but you know what? You guys, I won't get into that. You guys can define it yours. You guys have the lecture. This lecture that I'm reading from, I think I updated it. I sent it to you. But there are some key, before week 9, there are some key terms that I have to define, which I have here, which there's a whole lecture which I missed right here, which I need to get into. What constitutes the Caribbean? Okay, fine. I need to get into some of that. I don't think I get what is Caribbean. Okay, I was supposed to do something right there. Okay, so when we come back, we're gonna start with this quickly. Then I'm going to have you guys see what you guys come up with. What is Jamaica's corruption index on a scale of 0? Please do not Google it. You know, you. All right, I will move forward. I will push forward in the presentation. To define corruption and so on. And do you see any traces of corruption in your church, in your community, and so on and so forth, and what and so on and so forth. But we don't want to spend too much time because the video is going to be an hour long, and then I have to present on, I think I have a 15-minute presentation, a lecture that I'm going to share, and I'm going to do a quick thing on tracing and defining Caribbean thought. It's wrapping up some things in terms of tracing Caribbean. I need to do that quickly. What is Caribbean thought? Do a quick revisit that real quickly. This issue of Rex Nettleford, national identity, I want to do that real quickly with you. The extent to which the resistance movement has blah, 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 blah. What constitutes Caribbean, which is a repeat. Good. Which is all those I repeat. Is there a Caribbean identity? If so, what is it? The question of who we are. Great. Fidel Castro, we will do that. Marxist, I'll do that quickly before we get into the lecture. Oh, wow, I have all this to do to socialism, nationalism. What is the nation? Freedom towards the future. And then we get into... No, I don't think I'm going to do that. Just so you know, guys, this document, what I did was to the lecture notes. It's about 30 pages or 40 pages of all lecture. It's available on JTS Online. I think I posted it up there. So all of the information that I'm reading from the lecture notes is a lecture document with it's available in JTS Online. If you go to JTS Online, it will come up as a I think it says Caribbean Thought Lecture Working Document. And if you go to the bottom, week 9, it has corruption and opportunity. But I'm gonna push through because we don't have much time. So let's push through with this. Today, I'm gonna get into corruption. We're gonna get when we come back at 7:30, at 7:35, and when we become in countries' corruption indexes. And why do you say that? And then we begin the lecture, and then we go 13. That is a problem. And
In the class.
21.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not recording. We missed a lot. I'm saying I have said a lot. I hate when I am. If you guys notice that I'm not recording, please let me know. I'm very upset that I missed that very upset that I am not recording that. I'm making a very important point. And a lot has been transpired, which we did not record. I'm very upset about that. Very upset about it. Anyways, I was making the point about Haiti, um, which for people who are watching public will not get it because we were not recording, so you would have missed about 10 minutes of recording, and we apologize about the very vital point that you guys are missing that I am making here in relation to the issue of corruption. And one of the points that what you would have missed was a reading of a tape where I said that there has been much talk about corruption with the rise of the white collar crimes or theft in Jamaica. And I said that Janie McCowan submitted a letter to the Gleaner, which was letter of the day on January 18th, 2022, defining white collar crimes from a sociological perspective as a product of the societal and cultural norms that shape the behavior of individuals and organizations. Jamaica, like many developing countries, has a culture of corruption. We said culture is a way of life of a people. Culture is what gives an individual their character. So we said that Jamaica has a culture of corruption that is deeply ingrained in society. I noticed we said deeply ingrained in society. This culture of corruption can be seen in the widespread acceptance of bribes, embezzlement, and other forms of white-collar crimes as a normal part of doing business. And we said that you can see Janie McEwen letter of the day in the Jamaica Gleaner entitled "The Impact of White Collar Crime on Jamaica," dated January 18th, 2023. Well, I have two dates here. One inside the body, it says 2022, and then in the reference part, I said 2023. That must have been a typographical error. I presume and believe it's January 18, 2022. But I was making the point about culture and the corruption perception index, which measures corruption, the corruption perception within a country, with 0 being a very clean country, 100 being a very dirty country. And what we're saying that majority, when you look at the corruption perception index that's conducted by Transparency International, of which many countries are a part, CARICOM is a signatory to that. The National Integrity Agency that was formulated and led by Dr. Trevor Monroe actually helped to create the policy document that has helped to inform and guide the Caribbean. I know the Caribbean is fully signed on, and in fact, in many countries have enacted laws speaking to the issue of corruption. Yet, when you look at the corruption perception index in majority of the countries, majority of the black and brown countries are the most corrupt. Compared to the former colonial powers or Anglo-Saxon countries. And in fact, when you look at countries, Scandinavian countries and so on and so forth, they are almost clean. They're in the top one. In terms of they are in the top 10 most clean countries. The more when you look at the demographics of countries or the ethnic makeup or so on and so forth, the more black people and the more brown people within a particular country, it's the more corrupt that country is. And when you look at the Caribbean and African countries and so on, except for some of those countries that are communist countries and practice a form of government where the state does not have to be as transparent, then you might find in those countries they are perceived. In fact, you may not be able to obtain the corruption perception index, and if you do, you have to ask yourself whether or not. So many of those countries, say for example China and so on, and some of the Arab countries as well, and countries is not countries that are not as stable. You find that many of those are in the most corrupt quadrant in terms of the top 100 countries that are the most corrupt. But those are very important and key factors and key indicators. Now, the next thing you have to consider when you look at Transparency International, and Transparency International creates a data and but it's based on perception. And if a country have a culture of corruption where many do not perceive acts as deviant or corrupt, or many people may believe in one culture, you may see in one culture may perceive a behavior as deviant or corrupt, as against another culture that does not, or a community that may wear their pants below their waist or their buttocks, and another culture, or probably maybe it's not necessarily. Maybe when you look at culture, it could be older people from an older generation as against the Gen Zs or the Gen Ys and the Gen X. You can also speak because Jamaicans who are Gen Ys, okay, what is their culture towards a particular behavior? Now, that is important when you start to study culture, and the fact that many Jamaicans and Caribbean countries and developing countries are exposed to American TV. And we're doing a research on changing attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs and so on and so forth, and how technology plays a role in changing cultures and the mix throughout the world today. You know, we haven't talked about that, really. We haven't talked about that. But anyways, back to the point. I don't want to miss you here, because when you talk about I have a problem with the Transparency International in terms of how they're able to create data that shows the most corrupt as against those that are not as corrupt. Okay, because as I said, because I am saying to you, but however, because I could say that, because what is corrupt in one country not corrupt in another country. So the corruption perception index is really based on cultural values and norms. Okay, and if, however, that's one. But what the Transparency International, what they have done in terms of how they've collected the data is that, first of all, it begins with information, okay, and education, because part of the the Jamaican government and countries all together, we have to come together because we all do business together to ensure that we have a discussion about acceptable standards across the board. Okay, so and secondly, we have to also look at the education system and the kind of education system and the education and what is being taught in schools. The next thing you have to consider when you look at this particular issue, how transparent, the issue of culture and what pertains in each culture and what is perceived in each culture, and the problem that people may have when you start to think critically about Transparency International and the ability to create a data that shows what countries are corrupt as against others. You may and we say that, of course, you may argue that not just the issue of perception, and yes, okay, fine, you may create standards. However, there is still the issue of perception and how one. Sorry, I apologize. This is what Transparency International has done. They have they have various countries that have organizations that are actively involved in helping to create a culture, to create education, and to monitor and to manage and to help create policy. So in a sense, each country has to actually provide the data, and then they have to work together to create that perception. So how that is mitigated is another thing. However, what we know is that each country, say for example, Jamaica has a culture there's a culture in Jamaica. So of course the NIA helps to provide the perception index based on NIA's understanding of the culture. However, when you start to think about when you start to think about behavior and the issue, you have to think about the issue of ethics in terms of what is right, what is wrong, and how and the philosophy of ethics. And I mean, you may ask, are we talking about virtue ethics here? Are we talking about the divine command theory of ethics here? Are we talking about the utilitarian utilitarian method of coming to discerning what is ethical? So Jamaica, say for example, it's a Christian country, so the idea of ethics stems from what is biblical. Of course, in another culture context, say for example in France or in a very liberal country, then they probably may not be using the divine command theory to make determinations about what is right or wrong. Or Canada, they may use something else. Okay, not necessarily divine command, but utilitarian. I mean, it's within themselves, or the virtue, or that acts which promote love. But whatever the case is, it is never easy to make determinations about corruption. However, there are standards across the board. And so I wanted to make that important point. Having said that, I was talking about Haiti and the fact that Haiti, I was making the point about Haiti and the fact that Haiti was one of the problems of Haiti. And I completely forgot. I think I went off on a tangent because I wanted to capture the recording talking about the issue that we had missed. But I wanted to make the point about Haiti. But we are going to actually, if we have time on Wednesday for the first hour, I invited a guest for the first hour to talk about what is going on in Haiti right now. What's the latest update? Okay, we know that I was making the point about the Haitian Haitian prime minister who installed prime minister, formerly Haitian prime minister who went to Haiti, but he couldn't return because the gangs and the police told him if he come back, they're gonna kill him, and they blocked off they took control of the airport and blocked off all the points of entry. Dominican Republic, they were trying to find a route for the prime minister, for the formerly installed prime minister to come through DR to come, but the Dominican Republic had indicated that they don't want him there. But I was making the point about corruption, and we talk about the issue of Haiti being a very corrupt country. Well, the corruption reigns high. It's one of the most corrupt countries in the world, and that stems from a legacy of colonization. But I was making a point about Haiti, but I can't recall. But what I will do is when we will be talking about Haiti the first hour, and we also have a petition that we are writing talking about Haiti. But let's continue with this. Fabian, I'm sorry, I'm so late. Let's continue with the lecture quickly. I will get to your point in a second.
That's when it becomes the problem, when it becomes the norm. We talk about, there's a word that I learned when I lived in Jamaica called Bandooloism. In fact, and there were some people who promoted this promoted Bandooloism as if it was an awesome and an amazing character of the Jamaican experience. As if Jamaicans, that's who we love, Bandooloism, man. You know? But by the way, you can see Janelle McKeown's letter of the day, the impact of white collar crimes in Jamaica, letter dated January 18, 2023. Now, 3 students, Tyrese, Sancia. Go ahead. Yeah, let's start.
Before you go further, I'm looking at your writings there. At the top, you have January 18, 2022. And at your reference, you have January 18, 2023.
Deeply ingrained in its society. Is that true? Do you agree? So, now, before I move on from here, question. According to this letter of the day, she said that the culture of corruption can be seen in the widespread acceptance of embezzlement, so on and so forth. But according to the letter, it says Jamaica, like many developing countries, has a culture of corruption that is deeply ingrained in its society. Is that true? Do you agree that with Janelle or with Janelle McCowan? Do you agree, guys, that the culture of corruption can be that Jamaica, like many developing countries, has a culture of corruption that is deeply ingrained in its society?
Okay.
Sir,
Do you
are you
guys
asking?
believe? Yes, I am. Do you believe
Sir,
that
what is that?
Jamaica? I'm asking you guys. Do you believe that Jamaica has a culture of corruption that is deeply ingrained in our society?
Okay, sir, that's you speaking live now, or that's the recording?
That's
I'm
me.
listening
No,
to you.
I'm speaking live.
Okay, all right.
You want to answer? You want to take it up, Kenyatta?
Sir, can you repeat the question?
Do you believe that Jamaica has a culture of corruption that is deeply ingrained in our society, or Jamaica and many developing countries, including the Caribbean?
Specifically to Jamaica, yes, I believe that it's deeply cultured in our society, in the sense that, well, I can only speak on what I can experience and I've known. So we talk about, for example, the Trafigura situation, which happened many years ago. Then you also have the Carlos Hill embezzlement, and then you also look at it at a smaller level. For example, if you go to the NIS office, you will see persons outside who are charging a small fee just to obtain the different documents, whether it is yours or not. There is no verification process to determine whether it is your information or someone else's information. You also have, for example, one of the biggest in Jamaica right now, or it's not necessarily that, but I don't even know if it's a scam, but it's so deep rooted and cultured, is with the transport ministry whenever you're trying to obtain a driver's license or stuff like that. So yes, I do believe, and these are activities that are deeply rooted within the systematic areas within our society. For example, I don't remember the full details of it, but you have a couple persons who were recently charged with the embezzlement of millions of dollars from a particular, I think it's the Ministry of Gender. Um, and those monies were, from what I understood and did research, were used to start some of the biggest, events that are currently thrown around as in the entertainment industry. So yes, it's definitely embedded in our system, and as well, well, I'm not sure how is it now, but as well as the legal system, as what Average just said, as it relates to the ticketing system in Jamaica. I know that has changed somewhat. I'm not sure how or if there is now a loophole around that, but yes, I do believe it.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else? All right, let's continue with the presentation. Sorry, I think Fabian, you had a question. What was your question?
It wasn't a question, sir. I was just reminding you that you were on the point that the Prime Minister of Haiti went to Kenya to sign the document. But when you were about to start to explain what the outcome was, you recognize you were not recording.
Right, that is true. I only brought up the issue of Haiti because I wanted to make a point about corruption. I was going somewhere and I have a way of telling a story of fact before I make my point, but then it got drowned. I mean, I got it. Sorry, it got I got drowned. I mean, it was drowned in the sea or in the ocean. You know, it's I don't know what happened. I got derailed, and I don't know what the point I was making. But if you want to know about the issue, if you want to know what happened with the Prime Minister of Haiti, as it relates to him going to Kenya to sign the document, I had said that they found a way around it. So he went there to sign the bilateral agreement or the treaty. He signed it, but he couldn't return to Haiti because the gangs and the police force, not they weren't working together, but both threatened the prime minister that he was not to, if he were to return, they would make sure that they would make sure to either terminate him, and they took control of the port of entries. That's one. We did an interview with Father Hivison Joseph. He was a guest at the last class, and he's a contributor to the Neoliberal Round podcast and YouTube channel. In fact, I was trying to get him to come and talk about Haiti today, but in fact, we're going to be speaking with someone from Kenya and someone from Haiti who will be providing the latest update about what the situation in Haiti and what's going on as it relates to Kenya sending a force there and so on. So he said probably on Wednesday. So we're hoping that they will be able to come and talk to you. If not, he will still come and talk on the podcast and you guys can watch it later on. But what we know is that he couldn't come back. So he went to Puerto Rico, and then I know the Secretary of State went to Jamaica and they were trying to get a council together. They got a council together and the council, I believe that I heard that he handpicked the council. So the gangs and the people there are not happy about that. But as of right now, we're not sure what the latest is, but we know that they are still having problems because the people there haven't accepted the council. It's difficult for them to get anything done. But we will be speaking with someone as it relates to the latest on Haiti in the upcoming week, this week. Hopefully on Wednesday, the first hour of this class, if I don't have Father Hivison, we're going to have Pastor or Reverend Williams Leander, who was a student. He was one of my students I taught him Caribbean theology, and I also think I taught him Caribbean thought. But he's a pastor. He's originally from Haiti, and but he's not in Jamaica currently. He is in Martinique, I believe. But we're going to be interviewing him. He's going to be talking with us about the latest with Haiti. So I'm looking forward to that class, the first hour of the class, because the last hour we're going to be reviewing the quiz that I'm going to give you to do. Okay. All right, let's continue because it's 8:30 my time, 7:30 your time. I'm going to try and speed through the rest of this so that you can actually get the portion of the film, because there is a film that's called The Cost of Corruption that I want you guys to watch. Okay? All right, we'll continue.
Guys?
Yes, sir. Totally agree, sir.
Okay, why do you say that?
Okay, so when you talk about bribery or corruption, not bribery, corruption, we all know that this is something that Jamaica, affects us as a country. We think about, we know about what is happening in the banking industry, and I wouldn't even go that far. But just to get through business in Jamaica, at some point in time, we're going to get involved with some kind of a corruption. At some point, you go somewhere and you want to get through, the place is crowded and whatever. You find a little person that is going to get you out of the line, ahead of the line, and get through with what that you want to get done. Or you go to an institution and something that you would want to get done in a day, it is going to take you a month. And so in order to get it done in the day, you have to find a way to get it done within the time that you want to get it done.
Wait, this is interesting. Okay, this is interesting. So you're saying that
it is the truth.
So you're saying that because the system is so archaic in one sense, because it's so difficult to get things done, then in a sense, corruption provides an easier way to get through the hassle of some of the systems that people have to go through. Because I know people have complained about how difficult it is to start a business in Jamaica or to invest in Jamaica. People talk about the red tapes or the bureaucracy to get things done in Jamaica. So when there is high amount of bureaucracy,
it forces you to get involved in corruption.
Create more corruption. Oh, yes. Wow. Okay, wow. Yes. I never thought about that. Okay,
It
is
is.
you are saying that yes, Jamaica is corrupt, and yes, they in terms of and we are in terms of getting things done in terms of hiding and getting things done on the side, not going
Within
to
a reasonable time that that is beneficial to you.
so the system takes a long time to provide people to satisfy people's needs and so on. So you're saying that because of the level of bureaucracy in the system, sometimes it facilitates corruption, and especially so many of these countries in the Caribbean, the global south, there is a level of bureaucracy that then allows forces people to use corrupt means to get things done. Yes, I see several hands raised. Who is that? This is
Me first, sir.
who's first? Shireen or Christine?
Yes, Christine.
Christine, go ahead.
So, two things. One, you see when you look at our history, you can see that this is embedded in our history. We're coming back from the days of piracy, coming forward into I believe that the white collar crime is just modern day piracy. It's stemming from that, but not just. But I don't agree totally. Some of it points to that the system is archaic, which is what allows some of the buttering of hands to happen. But when you look at the integrity of the people as well, because this is not just a matter of doing business at that high level you spoke of starting a business. We're talking about simple day-to-day transactions. If you go to an establishment to buy something, even if you're first, you're not given any attention in a simple thing like customer service, unless you give somebody a tip. That is when they start smiling at you. That is when they start, pandering to you. And so you find that it's not just up, it's very commonplace.
Okay. Thank you so much. Who is next? Shireen, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Good night. I was just agreeing with Miss East. I agree that because to get things done are so hectic. For example, getting a bank account, getting a driver's license. It is so difficult to get a driver's license. That person go and buy it. So things are so difficult. They break the law. And okay, somebody at the depot knows somebody and they make links and somebody can get it for a specific amount of money, because when person do it legitimately, they fail them go back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. They can't get the license, even if they drive good, them find some reason to say, okay, you failed. And so the person says, okay, all right, I'm failing so many times, so let me just go and do the backdoor dealings.
Are we hypocrites? Are people hypocrites? Backdoor is okay. It's okay for people to operate. Okay. Outside of the system. Okay. So long as it satisfies you. But when another person does it, then it creates a problem, because the other persons are not getting the benefit. But the question I'm saying is that, is it an issue where corruption becomes a problem only when you are not involved in the act of corruption? Is that what's going? Okay. Chantel, and then Elise. Chantel.
Sir. I was gonna say exactly what Sharon just said about the whole driver license thing, because even when I go to get my driver license, sir, I drive good and they say that I failed. And after pay, the guy was like, so when I pay from first, why you have to drive 2 times and fail before you can pay? So, and then even where now, where my boss get export stuff like containers from European countries, and the custom persons them that come to check the container, it just give them a money or give them a free item, a free store, a free machine or whatever, and then just pay to check the container, and no matter what the thing did, them just build it because they're getting paid from him or a tip from him to do not full check the container as they should. So there's a lot of corruption. So persons can carry containers with stuff in there, like guns or illegal stuff, and they just pay the custom persons them, and then just go away without even checking the container properly.
Wow, it creates problems. So yes, so we're linked with it. Corruption. While it helps in one sense, in one sense, I'm hearing that corruption is a means to an end, especially for people of limited means who want to be able to get by in life. People who are, because the system makes it so difficult for people to access certain services and so on. I'm hearing then fine. It's easier for you but there are those easier for you to get things done using corrupt means, but there are those people now who have turned it into a legitimate business where people fail an exam, or sorry, it's people who legitimately apply for a service or a business, but they are being denied, and in a sense you are forced to
Yes, sir.
engage in corruption in order to access certain services, because
Yes,
now
sir.
it's a thing where those who are involved in it at the higher level are forcing you to do so. And wow, this is quite interesting. Who is next? Jason?
Elise, yes, sir.
Elise.
Okay, so I'm not sure if I want to get into it, but let me touch it. My colleagues touched on the point of a driver's license.
Yeah.
I know this is a business out there where these persons use it as an income, and I'm not sure if it's really a situation where you go and you drive and you fail if you drive good. I don't know if it is to that extreme, because I know if I can talk about my own child. When I sent her to learn to drive, the instructor gave her an option. He says you can either drive for it or you can pay for it. When she told me that, I said to her, listen, you are going to drive for it. She went, she did her test. The first time she failed. And she went back and she said, listen, I am not going to fail this time around. And she drove and she got her license. Now, I think persons has just become so comfortable with the system the way it is, they don't even try anymore. They got the option. Do you want to drive or do you want to pay? And they just go ahead and they just pay for it. So we have become so comfortable with the system that sometimes we don't even try.
Thank you so much. That's quite.
That is true, too, sir.
Jason, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
I am of the view that the morals of people, not everyone, but it is of no more to an extent. In regards to failing, no one would want to fail. Hence, they see the opportunity to pay their way out of life. They will do that. And look at the system set it that way, that person will always hustle, because person will use their office to self-gain. For example, I'm not bashing on a police officer, but if a police officer is out there, the government, they are not paying them to sustain their family and their needs and wants to an extent. And if it's a case where the police officer will stop you and he see to give you 3 tickets costing 50,000, and you know that it's hard for you to pay that 50,000, and it's all right, give me 15. And you in yourself, you know you're wrong, but you know you can pay a 15,000 out of your wrongs. Yes, you're contributing to corruption.
I see your hand, Kenyatta. Go ahead.
Hi, sir.
Yeah.
So as I would have mentioned in the initial class, when we just started this class, that I had to redo this course for many reasons. But I do realize a lot of the speakers just now are majority of my current batchmates going into our final year.
You
And
know that?
yes, especially Christine and I have worked together extensively. So
Oh,
when
wow,
we started at
wow.
the same time and so forth. And you know, sir, I remember having this conversation with her because I remember we were in another class and this was a point that came up and I think we came to I stuck to the point that a lot of this as well is a ethical dilemma, right? Because for example, Elisa made a point just now. Or I'm not sure if it was Elisa, but someone made a point in the conversation that this is a livelihood for a lot of persons, specifically as it relates to like, the driver's license. And if you want to, you can extend it to like police officers and the whole ticketing situation left or right, you know.
Yeah.
So this is like I remember we had this as an I think we were doing like conflict, one of those classes we were doing, and this came up, and I think it was Christine who brought up the topic, and I said, well, here we go, it's an ethical dilemma, because on one hand, the corruption is putting food on certain some people's plates, and on the other hand, it is wrong. So how, you know, I can't remember the specific ethical group that this falls under, but again, you know, I'm definitely seeing and sticking with the fact that this is a huge ethical dilemma, a huge ethical dilemma. But something I think it's at least that was the last speaker I was talking about, and um a lot of it also has to do with how person perceive you as well. They look at you and they judge you, right? For example, I drove for my driver's license in Jamaica. I literally went like 2 times. I went, and I remember um first time I went, I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't do so well. You know, overthinking it and so forth. They say, okay, maybe I did not do so well. Second time I went back, I was fully prepared because I
Yeah.
was practicing, I was doing everything I believed, and I know that I was fully prepared. And when he said that, I failed, and I stood there and I'm like, but why? I don't understand because I passed the written test and everything. The road
Uh-huh.
test, I remember clearly, it was up close to I remember specifically we were up near the National Stadium and we were making that left turn to come back down to where the children hospital is. And then I made the turn and everything. The driver said to me, "You sure you're not driving a long time, boss?" So Mr. Well, not driving a long time, but I believe that I'm a fast, but not believe I'm a fast learner, especially when it comes on to the practical thing. So this comes really easy for me, and I'm very attentive and I pay attention to details. If I know man, I never need to come right to come to this, but yet still I failed. And I remember having a conversation with my uncle who brought me, well, his friend who brought me there and have everything set up. And him turned to him and him called me by my yard name and him say, yo, oh, I forgot to just pay the money. And I said, no, me not pay the money. Him say, I forgot to pay the money. Because if you come here dressed like that, that's the whole me dress. Him say, people look for you and him say you have money. So I say, really? And him say, yes, so you're going to have to pay. And it took me almost 4 months to make the decision that I'm going to have to pay. Because guess why? If I didn't get that license, it meant that I would have to give up the position that I was promoted in as a traveling officer. And without having my license to purchase my car, I would have been losing quite a good
Yeah.
amount of money right there. So I'm like, it's a one-time payment. It's not like I'm going to have to repay it over and over and over. Right. So again, it's an ethical dilemma. But one thing, and you said it, and as it relates to something that Christine said as well, it is embedded in our culture. It's so deeply embedded, right? Because I remember doing a training course with I can't remember their name, NAA. It's that governing body that looks at the whole corruption in Jamaica when they just started.
Right.
We did this training with this German
NIA.
company, NIA, correct, with this German company, Friedrich, Hubert, and so forth from Germany. And I remember we went through an expensive course, and I remember something stuck with me until this very day was when the facilitator said to us that, but corruption is even in schools. So I said, what do you mean corruption is in schools? They remember the days when you're going to school? I said, yes, they remember how much line you skip. And I'm like, so you're trying to say that we, like my friends, saying to my friends, will a space in the line for us and come in or you just walk up on your friend in the canteen line and your friend put you in on the line. I say, yeah, that is corruption. That is where it started. You know, we practice it as we go along. So I'm like, okay, I do understand what you're saying. So in essence, I am agreeing with both what Christine was saying and some of what Elisa is saying, but then at the same time, it struck me a while ago of the point that Elisa made that yes, it is corruption, but it's a put food on people's table. So it really a feed a family, right?
Yes.
So
Of course,
that I think
redefine.
that mm-hmm.
Yes, and definitely. I wanted to. And when you talk about ethical dilemma, we're talking about when two ethical principles clash. Say, for example, the right to life as against um the right to life as against uh um as against the right to as against lying. Let's say that. Say, for example, the there was a story about the Jew that the Nazis was looking for Jews to execute, and they went to a home and they asked, "Do you have a Jew?" And they said no, but they were lying. Well, you are told not to lie, but you're also told not to kill. So, but you were supposed to protect life. So, in a sense, so you had an ethical dilemma in the sense that you, in order for you to work, you need your license, and at the same time, you could not get your license you um because you are being forced to pay for it. So the ethical dilemma is, I mean, do you lose your position or lose lose the opportunity of gain in and pay for um pay for your license, which I guess is something that is supposed to be, I mean, it's unethical to pay for it, but or illegal and therefore unethical. I mean, something can be illegal and not necessarily unethical. And something can be unethical or could be seen as unethical or immoral, but it's not necessarily illegal. Whatever the case is. But when we talk about corruption, I mean, we're talking about it involves the abuse of power for private gain. So if you're getting something by, and also it's one of the characteristic or one of the things that corruption does, it leads to nepotism. Um, and part of when we talk about nepotism, we're also thinking about connectionism. And so, but corruption erodes trust, it weakens democracy, hampers economic development, and further exacerbates inequality, poverty, social division, and the environmental crisis. Exposing corruption and holding the corrupt to account can only happen if we understand the way corruption works and the system that enables it. We're going to I'm going to move forward with this video because because there's a video within this particular lecture that I would like you to watch. So we are going to go a little bit further here. I said my screen is paused. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The issue of power, it's an abuse of power. Okay. So if the police, if I'm a regular citizen and I pay my driver's license, and that's not really necessarily corruption. I'm not really, but corruption is usually when those who are in power abuse their power for private gain. So that's corruption, okay? The environmental crisis, okay? Say, for example, the distribution of contracts. In power abuse their power, the issue of power. It's an abuse of power, okay? So
sorry, I went back a bit, but here we go.
And then people become, and then it leads to unfair gain, which affect other people. And if we live in a society with limited, and then people become, and then it leads
Sorry
to
about that. Here
unfair
we
gain.
go.
Ensure that you are okay on that side.
Hold on.
And then people become but then there's an issue of equality. The issue of there are some people who have access to corruption, there are those who don't have access to corruption. And and then people become, and then it leads to unfair gain, which affect other people. And if we live in a society with limited resources, and we have to allocate resources amongst unlimited wants, then if people access some services, access certain services in a corrupt manner, it may also affect other people. It affects other. Let's define what corruption is. We define corruption as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Again, we define. So when we talk about power now, we're more talking about it in terms of the issue of power. It's an abuse of power. Okay. So if the police, if I'm a regular citizen and I pay my driver's license, that's not really necessarily corruption. I'm not really. But corruption is usually when those who are in power abuse their power for private gain. So that's corruption, okay? That's the first thing. So corruption, and now what corruption does? Corruption erodes trust. It weakens democracy. It hampers economic development and further exacerbates inequality, poverty, social division, and the environmental crisis. Okay? Say, for example, the distribution of contracts, giving out contracts to your friends and your family. Recently, the Prime Minister of Jamaica was cited for making a recommendation to a family friend of his who I understand that, but that happened about 15 or 20 years ago. That also can be seen as corruption, but according to him, it wasn't an abuse of power. It wasn't corruption. I thought it wasn't really corruption. He made a recommendation about a friend and who he knows about. A family friend of his, and that was 15 years ago. The question is, did they do the job properly? Did they go through the channel? Did they do the due diligence? Did they go through the necessary process? So that is corruption. When we look at corruption, it's abuse of power. Say, for example, if you award contracts and you have to subscribe to a particular system, a process to get the contract, but you have a friend that works in the office that awards contract, and he or she gives you the contract without you having to do anything else. That is abuse of power. Okay. That is the kind of corruption we're talking about. And what you have, it's also connectionism and nepotism leads to corruption. When we talk about nepotism and corrupt, we talk about that is the hallmark of neo-capitalism. Okay, neo-capitalism. Do as I do as I say, but not as I do. Okay, and or duplicity and hypocrisy and so on. So when we talk, that's what we're talking about. Now, exposing corruption and holding the corrupt to account can only happen if we understand the way corruption works and the systems that enable it. When we talk about corruption, we're talking about fraud. So we talk about the issues that when we talk about corruption, we talk about power, talk about fraud. Again, corruption, we talk about fraud and power. And how does corruption affect you? The question of in terms of how corruption affects you. And there is a YouTube video that I will play quickly so that you can watch that. Let me minimize this and I'll play this.
What is corruption? To us, it's simple. Corruption is the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. Whether it's paying a bribe to access public services like healthcare and education, or whether it's money laundering schemes involving billions in dirty money. What's important is how corruption affects you, and the cost of corruption can be enormous. Corruption can cost you your livelihood, your rights, your health, your freedom, and sometimes even your life. It erodes democratic freedoms, rule of law, and trust in government. Corruption also reduces your chances for a healthy environment and sustainable future. When money meant to tackle the climate crisis is stolen, that's your future being taken from you. When money meant to improve your local schools, hospitals, and roads is snatched away, opportunities for a better life are lost with it. When money meant to improve your government and the rule of law is stolen, so too is your chance for a more just and secure future. Every year we lose billions to corruption, billions that were supposed to improve all of our lives, our opportunities, and our communities. At times, the scale of the problem can seem overwhelming. But corruption is not inevitable. Together, we have the power to stop corruption. Join us.
Okay, and that is a video that I took from the transparency.org. Now let's look at the basics. Corruption can take many forms and can include behaviors like one, public servant demanding or taking money or favors in exchange for services. Public servant demanding or taking money or favors in exchange for services. Secondly, politicians misusing public money or granting public jobs or contracts to their sponsors, friends, and families. I alluded to that, okay? Corporations bribing officials to get lucrative deals, okay? Again, public servant demanding or taking money or favors in exchange for services. Public servants demanding money or taking money in exchange for public service. Politicians misusing public money or granting public jobs or contracts to their sponsors, friends, and families. And corporations bribing officials to get lucrative deals. Okay. Now, of course, so when say for example, when the church was selling indulgences in order to grant forgiveness, that was an abuse of their power. That was a corruption of the scriptures. They were selling forgiveness called indulgences during the Middle Ages. But they'll only do so if the princes, the European princes, the kings of the nations would give them lands and so on and so forth, and land and house and so on and so forth. Okay, give them property, so to speak. A corruption of the scriptures, taking money or favors in exchange for services. Okay, corporations bribing officials. Now, corruption can happen anywhere in business, government, the courts, the media, and in civil society, as well as across all sectors from health and education to infrastructure and sports. Corruption can involve, even in the church, okay? Corruption can involve anyone, politicians, government officials, public servants, business people, or members of the public. Corruption have happened in the shadows, often and notice I say in the shadows. And earlier we said that corruption feeds off being hidden. Okay, police brutality feeds off being hidden. If police feel as though they are not being seen, that is when they do their worst. Okay, and that is why people are trying to regulate information now, because now everybody have access to information. But Corruption can involve anyone, and we said that it happens in the shadows, often with the help of professional enablers such as bankers, lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, opaque financial systems, and anonymous shell companies that allow corruption schemes to flourish and the corrupt to launder and hide their illicit wealth. We talk about, say, for example, they are banning, when DeSantis and the Republican Party want to ban critical race theory, what they're trying to do is they're trying to hide their illicit wealth, okay, by banning critical race theory, by hiding the truth. Because we talk about the shadows. That's also a corrupt means, using the system and politics. Corruption adapts to different contexts and change.
I wrote an article which is published I wrote an article. This is me here speaking now. I wrote an article that is published in the let me find it. That is published in a magazine entitled you need to read this or hear this. I'm not sure what it's called, what the magazine is called. I think a year ago or 2 years ago, when Tyree Nichols was killed, this black young man was killed by the police, brutally beaten and killed by the police. And if it weren't for the videos that were erected, we would not have had the truth. We would not have known what really transpired. And in fact, there were video cameras erected in a location which was erected by the police and the city. It was put there to ward off criminals or to catch criminals doing dirt or whatever the case is. But it caught the police. And if it weren't for the cameras, then we would not have known what happened. And now they're passing legislation in the US and in other parts of the world for police officers to always have their cameras on when they engage with people. That is very important. And I wrote an article. It's available on my website, the neoliberal.com. There is somewhere on the web when you go to the homepage. When you go to the homepage, you'll see that. There's an article entitled about Tyree Nichols, and I talked about the issue of police brutality. And I don't know what pertains in Jamaica and the Caribbean. Actually, I didn't study. I don't know if they have police officers in the class. What is the policy? What is the law? Because also the issue of police brutality is not just it's not just a racial thing. Even within the Caribbean, the issue of police brutality or police corruption is rife in the Caribbean. I know they have been trying to stamp that out by raising the police salaries, but I don't know if that has helped to mitigate and to minimize police corruption, police brutality, in terms of bribery and so on with the police. But as it relates to police brutality in Jamaica, police extrajudicial justice, I don't know if that has been curbed. I don't know if that was. I have a relative, a cousin, who was visiting from England, who was killed by the police, Jamaican police, many years ago. He was mistaken for somebody else, and they apprehended these two guys and handcuffed them and told them to run. We took them up the hill and told them to run through some bush and land and shot them in their backs as they ran. Of course, because we don't have any video cameras or any we know that this happened based on what we were able to put together, but it was difficult to corroborate that. So I know this particular lecture is going to go live, but I don't know what is going on now in terms of the Jamaica or the Caribbean, in terms of what policies or legislation are in place, what policies and legislation are in place as it relates to help to minimize police brutality, police corruption and have they considered the in terms of police engagement to have their audio open, have video cameras on, because that serves as that serves as a very strategic and important tool to help to minimize corruption and police brutality. Anyway, let's continue.
Circumstances. It can evolve in responses to changes in rules, legislation, even technology. Okay, we talk about the cost of corruption. There are various costs to corruption. There's the political costs, your freedom and rule of law, political costs, social costs, your participation and even your trust in government, environmental costs, your chance for a healthy environment and a sustainable future, and of course, economic costs, your opportunities to build and grow health. Now, when we talk about such structural adjustment policy and the problem of the Caribbean today was a problem of corruption and hypocrisy and duplicity. It was corruption that caused the Caribbean and many Caribbean countries, okay, to continue to be, to continue to experience deepened realities or dependent realities. When you talk about the political cost, the social cost in the Caribbean, when you talk about the environmental costs in terms of, and the economic costs, the corruption has affected the Caribbean. And when people talk about corruption, you never look at it in terms of globally. You never look at it in terms of what's going on globally in the world. People look at it in terms of government, but there's also global corruption and the strategies behind many global policies that create the realities of income inequalities and poverty in the world today. And people hide behind social welfare. Now, to fight corruption, we must endure transparency. Transparency is all about knowing who, why, what, how, and how much. It means shedding light on formal and informal rules. Notice I say shedding light on formal, because corruption is not, okay, make use of not just informal, but also formal rules, plans, processes, and actions. Transparency helps us, the public, hold all power to account for the common good, the public. Seeking and receiving information is a human right that can act as a safeguard against corruption and increase trust in decision makers and public institutions. However, transparency is not only about making information available, but ensuring it can be easily accessed, understood, and used by citizens. And that's the next important thing, information. The access to information. And if you want to make information easily accessible in order to promote transparency, it means that you have to decentralize, okay, information and deregulate it out of the hands of those who hold monopoly in society. But transparency is only the first step to curbing corruption. It's only the first step to curbing corruption. Another way that we can curb corruption is this. By the way, you can share the transparency.org. They have a website. You can subscribe to their weekly newsletter to get the latest news and updates from Transparency International. In fact, I was going to do this earlier, but I said I'm going to wait until I get to the class to make it an activity. I'm going to sign up so I can get information about what's going on in terms of in the world. Mackenzie at jts.edu.jm. I'm going to sign up and select country. All right, since I'm in the US, we are going to sign up for the US, United States. There we go. And okay, and I'm done. Oh, work in. Donate to chapter. Okay, I didn't ask me.
We're going to move forward, Push. I actually did something. I'm looking at the video now and I'm seeing, I went to the next side and click on the donate part. You can actually subscribe to Transparency International. You don't have to donate. You can, on the left, just click on subscribe on the left side. I just noticed I made an error there. But let's but you can go to their page and you can sign up as well. Let's continue.
The different activities. It's been an interesting season.
Sorry about that. Let's not. Let's just go forward. Now we're going to watch the film, The Cost of Corruption. Okay. Here we go.
I am about to end the poll. Let me see. Okay, you have all answered the question. I am ready to. Okay, I'm ready to end the poll and
we go.
Let me see.
We go forward. I apologize.
Because you really look at the Jamaican history, Jamaica's history in terms of corruption, what has affected our position, and what we can learn from this, and we can do in the future to make it better. Okay, here we go.
Corruption in its various forms is a serious threat to the social order and the rule of law.
Corrupted peoples are really criminals.
Corruption starts at the head of our government system.
Sir,
you know, the governance part, that's where most of the problem lies within the country.
Hello? Are you guys hearing?
Never mind. Yes, sir, we're hearing.
Oh.
We corrupt in such a way that you can't say nothing. If you say something, you're going to get what the duck is. Frank speaking as a joke.
You know, everybody corrupt. Jamaica corrupt. And the whole of them corrupt. The whole of them corrupt.
You know, who is one of the main reasons for corruption?
We are a corrupt society in so many ways. We maim, harm, and kill each other too quickly and for no reason.
The film you are about to see is about a matter of major and growing concern amongst the Jamaican people from all walks of
Sir, the audio leads, sir.
Really did that because I wanted to see. Okay, I am sharing my screen with you.
But we could have achieved so much more had we brought corruption more under control. I am Professor Trevor Monroe, Head of National Integrity Action. And in the next hour, you're going to be hearing from experts dealing with different episodes of corruption that have bedeviled our country and our progress over the last 40 years.
Oh, do I think Jamaica is a corrupt place? Yes, it is. Yeah, very corrupt.
Transparency International give Jamaica a ranking of 3.3 out of 10, where the closer you get to 0, the more corrupt you are. And actually argues that in Jamaica, corruption is the norm.
Corrupted peoples are really criminals. So, same way as how you define the criminals, the same way you should define corruption.
Where is the money going? What you doing with all these monies?
But many people have reported that the experience of low-level corruption has diminished considerably in recent years. So what the score probably reflects is the continued existence of high-level corruption, which really reflects the way that our political system is still contaminated by links with organized crime.
I think the government needs to be more interactive with the people of the country. I think they need to know what people want for the country and not just decide for them.
In reality, if it was the lower level end persons only in the corruption, I mean, that could have been dissolved a long time. Because the higher level would come in and brute force that. See, if the king is corrupt, then his soldiers gonna be corrupt and his followers gonna be corrupt. I'm not saying the government is corrupt, but I'm saying it is coming from the top end level.
Corruption starts at the head of
of our government system and comes right down. So it's not, I can't comment on corruption because not that I'm not aware of it, I know that it exists, but where it starts from or where it comes from, I cannot tell you.
My particular concern is the complicity of government and those who are in political leadership and what they should do differently and how they allow things to go by and even contribute to public office being misused.
We have never really go forward with actually prosecuting someone of status with these laws, and I think that is really what perpetuate the crime of corruption, you know.
I feel corruption is not a small man or a big man issue. It's an everybody thing. We are supposed to look into it. You understand me?
Right now, you're having two politicians. You have JLP and PNP. And the whole of them corrupt. The whole of them corrupt.
At the political level, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence and people that speak to you off the record about wanting to do investments in Jamaica, whether local investors or foreign investors, and feeling that either being outrightly asked to pay for services or feeling that because they were unwilling to, then whatever ideas they had did not get to the top of the chain.
Towards the end of the 1960s, when Jamaica was amongst the fastest growing economies in the world, we received what was up until that point the largest loan to a developing country granted by the World Bank, and we received that loan for educational purposes, to build schools and institutions that would have been able to receive the influx of young people seeking an educational opportunity in the years after independence. The loan did not achieve its purpose as intended. There were immense cost overruns, 100%, which contributed to the beginnings of our debt, and which, had we not had those overruns, we could have built 50 more schools. Reason? Partisan, political award of contracts, not on the basis of merit, not on the basis of competence, but on the basis of party connection. And of course, the contractors gave back to the politicians, to the party, kickbacks in appreciation for this political corrupt behavior. Jamaica suffered then, and we continue to suffer now from this political corruption that we need to bring to an end.
Education is a key.
After 5 decades of independence, a lot of Jamaicans have begun to have doubts as to whether independence is a good thing. And when you look at the problems that Jamaica face, you can trace many of them to a weak or a non-performing education and training system. For me, there are two main objectives about an education and training system. And if it is effective, you'll see it in a productive labor force. Jamaica has one of the least productive labor forces in the Caribbean, much more in the world today. Out of a labor force of some 1.3, 1.4 million, over 900,000 have no training at all. Among the thousands of unemployed, many of them have been to secondary school for 4 years or more, and they don't have one piece of certification. The second objective about an education and training system, and if it is good, it does what I would say, build a more socially cohesive society. Everybody has the same learning experience for the first 11, 12 years. They are able to settle disputes without resorting to violence.
I mean, ignorance, I mean, the simplest thing, they will probably blow out and take it out of proportion and act aggressive towards, while other persons...
Cohesive society. The thousands of unemployed. For me, there are two main objectives about an education and training system. And if it is effective, you'll see it in a productive labor force. Jamaica has one of the least productive labor forces in the Caribbean, much more in the world today. Out of a labor force of some 1.3, 1.4 million, over 900,000 have no training at all. Among the thousands of unemployed, many of them have been to secondary school for 4 years or more, and they don't have one piece of certification. The second objective about an education and training system, and if it is good, it does what I would say, build a more socially cohesive society. Everybody has the same learning experience for the first 11, 12 years. They are able to settle disputes without resorting to violence.
I mean, ignorance, I mean, the simplest thing, they will probably blow out and take it out of proportion and act aggressive towards, while other persons with a more intellectual level will probably reason it out. As how we learn in the primary system, talk it out, don't fight it out, the conflict system.
Don't just fight for no reason sometimes. Legal this thing escalate and they don't have a big fight.
If you are educated, then you will know what to say, what to do, and take a stand. It's not because a politician put a money in your pocket, I put something in your pocket, you can say, yo, I turn a blind eye to certain things. You need to be more educated in doing stuff and some of the things that you're saying.
For the first time in 1953, elected Jamaicans became ministers of government. They started to have a bigger say. Up to that time, only 1% was enrolled in the high schools in the country. And so, the decade before independence, Jamaica was well on its way to establishing a first-rate education and training system. On the technical side, the College of Arts, Science and Technology was established. And the technical schools, Kingston Technical, Homewood Technical, Dintle Technical, and then St. Elizabeth Technical, were all given a modern science curriculum. And graduates would feed into the College of Science, Arts and Technology. The effect was there. Within 3 years, Jamaicans were now staffing the bauxite industry. The Jamaican economy grew faster in the decade between 1953 and 1963 than the economy of any developing country in the world. And the prestige of Jamaica was such that in 1966, Jamaica was selected by the World Bank for a very special loan for education purposes. The amount of money is 9.5 million. But place that in context. For the 10 years, or for the period, more than 10 years, between 1953 and 1966, only 4.5 million was spent on secondary education. And you're now getting a loan of 9.5. And what this means is that in one shot, between 3 years, it should have been a 3-year program, 1966 to 1969, you would almost have doubled your capacity for secondary education. The way how we spent it gave education and training a setback from which it has never recovered. The government of the day called in Dr. Arthur Burt. He made one very, very important change to the method of hiring contractors. And that was, whereas before, there was an established panel of contractors, certified, who members of parliament could recommend from, but a panel at the Ministry of Education would have the final say in choosing. That was changed to allow each member of parliament to recommend the contractors who would build the schools in their constituencies. The program lasted not 3 years, but 6. And more importantly, the overrun on the primary school building program was 125%. And the overrun on the secondary school program, 100%. Which means for the money spent, the Jamaican taxpayer should have had twice as many schools. A new administration took government in 1972. And looking at the school building program and what had gone on, there was a big hue and cry for an investigation. In response to that hue and cry, a commission of inquiry was set up under which came to be known as the Da Costa Commission. Now, the findings of the Da Costa Commission should be read by every Jamaican. And the objective is not so much to remind the population of where guilt or blame is, but to try to make sure that this process is never, and these mistakes are never, ever repeated. Today, Jamaica has a debt of some $1.7 trillion. This debt has been accumulated from the time of the loan for education in 1966. If those monies had all been spent in a way to get value for money, not only would Jamaica be a fully developed country by now, but Jamaica would be able to export capital and assist other countries to develop as well. But we are now faced with this debt of 1.7 trillion, which should have carried us well on the way to economic development by providing useful infrastructure or facilities such as schools and clinics, to provide us with first-rate education and health services. And to the extent that those monies were spent without the Jamaican taxpayer getting value for money, you now have the money to pay back, but with a labor force that is far less able to produce the goods and services competitively to pay that money. And for this purpose, more so than anything else, I would recommend that every Jamaican read the report of the Da Costa Commission just to see how we wasted what I regard as the most important opportunity in the history of independent Jamaica to accelerate the process to provide a first-rate education and training system. I left.
That was a very important point. I'm so happy that I am talking about corruption right after we talked about the issue. We played a film talking about structural adjustment, life and debt, talking about how the Caribbean and Jamaica and Antigua have struggled since independence as a result of especially part of the problem was the issue of structural adjustment. The fact that Caribbean countries in the 1970s struggled especially as a result of OPEC, the oil producing nations, slashing the oil production, which drove up the cost of oil. And because so many Caribbean islands were affected by that, and so they had to go to the IMF, the World Bank, to borrow money. The IMF and the World Bank, who many of them, the IMF and the World Bank, many private interests are vested in the IMF and the World Bank from the developed countries. So in a sense, they are lending them. They lend the money to the World Bank. The World Bank lend it to countries under a program called Structural Agreement, and Michael Manley and the other politicians talk about how their hands were tied. Ramesh Sawan in the book, he talks about the challenge of structural adjustment in the Commonwealth Caribbean. He talks about the strategy of structural adjustment in one sense, and in a sense, when you watch Life and Death, in a sense, the blame is, they're putting the blame on the IMF and the World Bank, and I alluded to that last week. They're putting the blame on the IMF and the World Bank. And when you look at Professor David Witter at UWI talking to his students, he was talking about the conditionalities which had prevented Caribbean development. Or they talk about Bill Clinton and the WTO, and with the whole ending of the banana agreement under this new globalization strategy. You know, we talk about how that has affected the Caribbean, but when you watch this film about corruption, in a sense, it's as if they're saying, well, fine. What has affected our development? Yes, is because we got all this money and our hands were tied. But, however, we got money for education as well. We got money for education. And education is very important because it helps to develop the people. When you look at China, when you look at Cuba, and how many scientists and smart people they're putting out. Because many of these countries, they invest in education. Education is free. And Jamaica and many Caribbean islands got trillions of dollars in loans meant to develop their education system in the 70s, in the 80s, 60s, and it was used for something else. To pay their travels and their houses and their cars and bonuses, and it was mismanaged, and the film alludes to that. And when we talk, and I know some of you might say, well, and I'm probably the film is dated, but when we look at post-colonialism, we talk about, we're looking at currents that have come to create the Caribbean we have today, the realities today. We talk about post-colonialism, looking beyond colonialism, looking at what pertains today. But part of that is looking at the legacy of slavery that has come to create our realities today. But part of that legacy is not just looking at you can't just also look at slavery. You have to also look at the opportunities that the Caribbean have had. Yes, we got loans, and yes, our hands were tied, but we also got loans to invest in our people, in the development of people. And when you invest in people, that is the greatest investment and the greatest way you can develop your country, your society, your nation. And Jamaica and many Caribbean countries got monies, and the monies were mismanaged, which has helped to affect. And when you listen to the former minister of local government and so on, when you listen to him earlier, he alludes to it. And by the way, if you can look at the report, you can type into the Costa Commission. It's probably there in the archives. You can read it, the Costa Commission, and they allude to and they're going to talk a little bit about that. Probably we don't have much time left, but you can This lecture is available. The lecture I'm playing from is available. I actually just added it to Caribbean Thought playlist on my YouTube channel. And and this particular version of the lecture will be available too. So you can and I will actually put a link to it. So I will put this recording, this Zoom lecture is going to be available probably in a couple of days. And the one that I'm playing, which contains the video, this video, is already available, and I'm going to actually add it to include the link to it. But the Da Costa Commission, because we won't be able to watch all of it. And the film is actually also available on YouTube if you watch it as well. But it's quite interesting though. And if I ask you in the exam, who is to be blamed? Of course, you to do an essay, who's to be blamed? Of course, you can talk you can talk about life and death, and of course you can talk about the Costa Commission. You can talk about the issue. So yes, I know that Jamaica has suffered. The Caribbean has suffered from the past as a result of corruption. By the way, earlier I talked about the police force in Jamaica and in the world, and people in power. It's the abuse of power. And I'm looking at the current Jamaican. I made an error. The corruption perception index. The corruption perception index looks at corruption perception. Is measured from 0 to 100. So as you can have a score from between 0 to 100. 0 mean you are not clean. It means you're dirty if you're 0, and if you have a score of 100, it means you're clean. Jamaica in 2012 had a score of 38. And that was between 2012 and 2014. In 2015, it went up, meaning to what was it? I'm looking at it right now. We went to a score of 41, which is an increase by 2 points. That means some improvement. That's good, but it went back down in 2016 to 39, and then it jumped up to 44 in 2017, and it's remained there for the last several years. So it's at 44 currently, and so Jamaica is ranked 69 out of 180 countries. Jamaica is ranked 69 out of 180 countries. You can see that if you go to transparency.org, you can see it will show it doesn't have 2024. But the cleanest country is Denmark, which has a score of 90, then Finland, then New Zealand, then Norway, Singapore, Sweden, Switzerland, Netherlands, Germany.
Sir.
Yeah.
Sir, based on me read one and two things, is that case where I say, back in the days, like Jamaica was like economically so better than Singapore. Like Singapore used to chill Jamaica now, and like no, it's
in the late 1950s. Yes, the late 1950s to the very early 1960s. And if you have a copy of my the textbook for the class with neoliberalism, you will see that the first part of the book is a lot of data and statistics and economics, but I talk about Jamaica's GDP was 5.7%, I think, 5.7%, which is high, and it was equaling that of Singapore. Some people would say that it might have slightly ahead, but yet the Jamaican dollar was as strong as the US dollar. But of course, part of the conditionality of the loans and part of this globalist strategy meant that Jamaica had to devalue. So Jamaica and many Caribbean islands devalued their currency. Some Caribbean islands did not, but Jamaica was one of them that did. And since then, after the Jamaica struggled to maintain stability after that, because of other conditions. You open up your economy for foreign goods to flood your market. Many Jamaicans buy foreign goods that come into the market, so means there is more. So that means you're spending more US dollar than you're getting, and US dollar is the trading value of, it's a lot of permutations. It's a lot that goes into this. So, but yeah, indeed. But anyway, but I was looking at the corruption index. The country, I think Grenada is the highest rank or Grenada is ranked 53, and it went up. And they are ranked 49. But St. Lucia is ranked 45, and they have a score of 55. Please remember, it's between 0 to 100. St. Lucia right now has the highest score. They are ranked 45. They're ranked 45. They're ranked 55. So they're ranked 45 with a score of 55. Costa Rica is 40. Okay, Costa Rica is right by St. Lucia. Dominica is ranked 42 with a score of 56. I don't think that is the same Dominica Republic. I think that's just Dominica. Bahamas, no, they are the highest ranked. They have a score of 64, and they are ranked 30. Please remember, is 30 out of 180 countries. So the top ranked is Denmark, and then the highest ranked is it. Let me see if there's any other Barbados. Wow. Barbados is now ahead of the US. Wow. They just increased a huge improvement since 2022. Barbados is ranked 24. Big improvement. I don't know what they're doing in Barbados. Very, very good. But Barbados, they actually, I never talk much about Barbados, and in my book, in the textbook, I talk about Barbados. I did a comparison between Jamaica, Guyana, and Barbados. Barbados was a little bit different in terms of how they applied structural adjustment. They never willy-nilly accepted structural adjustment. Their demographics are a little bit different. The makeup of the demographics is a little bit different. A lot of the plantocracy remained on the island after emancipation and after independence. So a lot of the plantocracy and a lot of mixed population there. Barbados is kind of unique. But secondly, and it's a smaller island anyway, it's very small island. But Barbados, and not only that, they also have social security. Not many Caribbean islands have social, but I think they have social security. I was studying Barbados a couple of years ago, but over the past couple of years, they've already have some form of social security. But of all the Caribbean islands, I think they are the ones that have the most elaborate social security. I think Trinidad have some form of it, of a social security. But Barbados is ranked 24, and they have a score of 69. I don't think, let me see if there's any other Caribbean country. I thought Cuba was up there once, but no, Singapore is now ranked 5th with a score of 83. Finland, but of course, a score of 90 is Denmark, and they've occupied Denmark and Finland and New Zealand. Those are the Scandinavian countries. Very little Black people live in those countries. Canada is ranked 12. I think Kenyatta is in Canada. They are ranked 12. They increased as well. They have a score of 76 out of 100, and they are ranked 12 out of 180. And of course, the US is ranked 24. They are tied with Barbados, but Barbados, and of course, they have a score of 69. But Bahamas is 30, ranked 30, and then the next one is after Bahamas is St. Lucia, Costa Rica, St. Lucia. Grenada is ranked 49. They experience a big jump as well, and then all the way down, and then they got to Jamaica. Jamaica has been steady over the last 5 years. Jamaica needs to improve. They have been stuck over the past 5 years. And in fact, over the last 10 years, they've been between 30, stuck between 38 and 44. They need to do something with Jamaica. But you can go to transparency.org and you will be able to get all of this as well. And I no, but as I said to you, by the way, earlier I talked about police for not all police officers and not all people in power abuse their power. Okay, just so you know, not all people, but nevertheless, it happens, and we hope, and part of this, I'm happy that in this class we're having the discussion, we're talking about it, so that we are all exposed. We have to constantly have the conversations about this thing. This is very important that we have that we keep having the conversations about this, because if we don't have the conversation about these things, then we are doing an injustice to the education system, because especially as a college and at a theological institution as well, then I think we have a responsibility within discussing Caribbean thought and post-colonialism, that we have a responsibility as people within nations, within the Caribbean. We have a responsibility to hold our government and people in power accountable, and to also hold ourselves accountable, and to always ensure the legislation, and to continue to have discussions in our churches, in our schools, in our workplaces, community centers, about this. So this is an important class. This is an important topic, and I'm happy I have the opportunity to talk with you guys about this and to discuss it. And Socrates says the unexamined life is not worth living. So as individuals, as institutions, and even myself, and even yourselves, whatever we do, we have to always be open to critique, always be open, not just from the external, but even as the internal, we ourselves. And we have to always catch it. We have to and because some of this is so cultural, some of these acts have become so normal. Sometimes people may miss acts that can be considered as corrupt, and so that is why we have to always have the conversations, and because this is important, not just and at the collegiate level is great, because you guys are leaders, you guys are facilitators, and so as well we hope that you guys will, as you go out on your daily lives as professionals, you will also be able to continue to set the tone. Okay, I'm gonna wrap up this. What time is it? I'm not sure what time it is. Anybody knows what time it is?
It's 10 minutes to 9.
Oh, we only have 10 minutes left. So let's wrap this video up.
My big job in a corporation to run for MP in the last general election, but the people rejected me, yam me out and heckled me, and marked them X for the other MP. But my beloved party, they rescued me with a big government consultancy. Now I'm a consultant, a big government consultant. I have a contract, a big government contract. US dollars is what I get. Strictly cash, no bunks check.
The consequences related to the corruption in the World Bank loan were that half the schools were built that could have been constructed. Not enough schools were there for the expanding student population, which led to severe overcrowding of classrooms, bad student performance, poor learning outcomes, and low productivity.
But there is hope. Since the end of the 1960s, our people have learned that the political award of contracts on partisan bases and not on competence is hurting Jamaica and holding back our development. Our authorities have set up an Office of the Contractor General and other anti-corruption institutions which need to be strengthened, but which are a step forward. This is why National Integrity Action is supporting the establishment of a single anti-corruption agency which brings together the anti-corruption bodies and gives them prosecutorial powers. But NIA alone cannot do it. What can you do? You need to give us your support in the call for a single anti-corruption commission, and each and every one of us needs to be watchdogs to ensure that money borrowed or money gotten from our taxes gives us value for money and does not end up in the pockets of partisan contractors and ultimately back into the pockets of politicians to fight elections.
What this animation shows is the development of two countries, and we've picked Jamaica and Singapore. And you can see in the background there, the year is running like a clock. Singapore is picked out in red and Jamaica is picked out in yellow. And you can see the two economies developing almost in parallel throughout the 1930s, the 40s, the 50s, into the 60s, and there we get to the crucial year, early 1970s, and you can see what happens. Jamaica's development effectively stops, while Singapore continues on a high growth path.
So I will argue that the data put forward by Transparency International speaks primarily to what happened in the formal space, because that is the place you can monitor the most. Nobody tries to study informal space because it's too dynamic and it'll be too expensive. So most of these information coming out is really about what we know as a regular business people. It's not even something you downtown when you sit on the road doing them thing. You don't have time for actually doing research with those people. It costs too much.
So if you take our more moderate estimate of 7.5% and say, well, if we aggregate that cost over the last 40 years, what does that add up to? And it's well over $18 billion that we've forfeited. Now, what that means is that we're currently one of the most heavily indebted countries in the world. Something like 90% of our current public debt is the equivalent of what crime and corruption has cost us these last 40 years.
In 2011, 2012, almost 1/4 of Jamaica's people lived in squatter settlements. In settlements, illegally occupying either government or private land. This resulted from over 100 years of Jamaicans moving from country to town in search of a better opportunity, but without adequate settlement and infrastructure programs. In 1994, the government of the day sought to deal with this problem with Operation Pride. Hundreds of millions of dollars of Jamaican taxpayers' money was invested in this program to regularize the squatting problem. Operation Pride did not achieve its objective to the fullest extent. Why? Numerous irregularities identified by the Auditor General, the Contractor General, as well as a special task force. Irregularities centered around political interference in the award of beneficiaries, in the payment of contracts, which ensured that hundreds of millions of dollars were lost without us Jamaican people getting value for money and sorting out the squatter problem.
And that is why, from the very start, I built a fundamental element in Operation Pride that would make sure we no longer were distributing houses or land based on political affiliation.
Talking about housing in Jamaica and how difficult it is to get a house. I tell you straight up, it's hard. I'm not even put it for say. It's difficult, it's tough.
I came home from my studies in 1994, May of 1994. Heard about this grand announcement by the government of Jamaica to deal with a comprehensive land policy that would alleviate squatters.
People don't want to live in the country. People want to live in the town. And take for instance, like say Mona Common. People don't want to move from there because of some ties. They have a lot of ties there, so they don't want to move.
Well, my parents, I don't think they had a choice back in the day based on their background. So they founded this land and was living on it. It is what it is, a squatter community, because we just found the land and lived on it. So it's not that, oh, we're just squatters. I don't think people even look at it. If you go around and you ask people, you're a squatter, they won't be able to tell you what it is. They just know that they're living, right? So if we could get, or if there is anything in place for us to build up the infrastructure, I don't think it would be known as a squatters land.
I'm not sure if you really want to talk to me about Operation Pride, because I was a beneficiary as a young professional, and I watched firsthand something that started off as a good idea turning into a corrupt project.
We usually go down by the gully that is in the riverbed, and pack stones. And the money that we should get from that, it go towards the same. What is the phone name again? What is the thing name again? What do I deal with? Pride. This Operation Pride thing. Yes, right? So over the years now, it's like the whole of us as citizens here, most of us had tally books, and we used to show because we expected to, come on,
be accountable.
So me as a Jamaican, I stay straight.
The case in the Coke extradition. Those who are connected to the gangs and facilitating gangsterism. It requires community renewal to empower the people in inner city communities. But most of all, Jamaica requires each and every citizen to speak out, to have their voices heard. Were that not the case in the Coke extradition, the government would not have been forced to reverse its position, to extradite Coke, and to ensure that organized crime suffered this major defeat.
I think the government, they can create more open doors for people to be more innovative, because you have persons on the streets who are not fully occupied in what they do.
If the people who we are looking up to and who we have voted in to lead us do not do the right thing and are not accountable, why should anybody else be accountable?
So me as a Jamaican, I stay straight. Me I try to curve my thing, me I try to put it in my youth them, for curve it, and me I try my best. I know me alone can do it, but me still I do my part.
So we need some intelligence, and within the intelligence we need a sort of philosophical idea that is continued and perpetuated in the media, because this is where the youth them latch on to know information.
Also, if they get something for the children them to do, it will help to cut down the crime in the country.
Now that you have heard from our experts and from the commentators how much corruption is costing Jamaica, how much it is holding us back from building on our immense achievements, where do we go from here? I can tell you where NIA is going. We are going to continue building awareness through films like this one, through town hall meetings where we hear from you. We're going to be continuing to insist on urgent passage of campaign finance reform legislation and the establishment of a single anti-corruption commission. But NIA alone cannot do it. We need the help of our international partners to ensure that the taxes which their taxpayers pay in order to help us here in Jamaica reach the target. But most of all, we need the help of each and every one of you. Get involved with NIA. Call our office to report whatever you see that looks corrupt. You be a watchdog, be a searchlight. Visit our website. Help us to make Jamaica the place of choice, to live, to work, to raise families and to do business, so that sooner more than later, we get the Jamaica that we are capable of achieving with the talent of our people.
And medias like this need to send out information properly. And don't edit out everything we say. Yeah, that's
The following are excerpts from messages to NIA.
And that's it. Stop share. That's it for class. For the video, in terms of that video today, we're gonna end class here. I'm gonna email you guys some a quiz that you will do. You should get. I'm gonna send it to Kemori, and then she'll send it to you guys. I think she has the class email list, and she also have the. I'm now on WhatsApp, so I don't know if I'm on the group. So, but you can add me. I'm on WhatsApp, so you can add me to the group. I'm now on WhatsApp. My WhatsApp now works. So if whoever is the admin can just add me, that would be great. But so that way I could send you stuff easily. However, I will send Kimori a quiz, have you guys do it, we discuss it the last hour of class. Hopefully I'll get, for the first hour, I will have the guest come. You guys will have to be on time, because I think that is the last class before your exam, I believe. So I'm gonna ask you to be on time. Come at 7 o'clock, everybody. We're gonna discuss the quiz. Very important. We're gonna discuss the quiz that you guys are gonna be getting to peruse and to attempt. If you can attempt it, that'd be great. We talked as it relates to an essay. What I've asked you guys to do is that you guys have to do an essay, but however, I'm asking you guys to do a survey and you can distribute a questionnaire with amongst 10 people, and to provide the findings in a 1 to 3 findings paper or reflection paper. That's it. Okay. A paper exploring attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs. You can create. I'm gonna ask that you can utilize my questionnaire, the questionnaire that I have. You can use that to create your own. You could copy. You can plagiarize my questionnaire. Okay. That's the only time you can plagiarize. You can plagiarize my questionnaire and use it to create your own questionnaire. Give it to 10 people you know, have them complete it, and then you can study the findings. Provide a findings paper as a reflection. So that's it. That's all you will have to do for a final paper. I'm not going to give you anything else to do. I will see you on Wednesday, okay? And I guess we will talk. Have a great one, guys. Take care. Avril, go ahead.
Sir, my apology. What you said about the reflection?
You're supposed to do a reflection paper providing your findings on a survey that you will do exploring attitudes towards Afro-Caribbean beliefs.
Okay.
And I'm saying you can the survey that I think you guys had done the survey. I mean, if you haven't done it, please go to I don't know if you know, I'd ask you guys if you if you go to JTS Online, you'll see that as one of the assignments. If you guys haven't done that, please do that. But for your final, I'm gonna put it up on your JTS Online, but tomorrow actually. I'll post it up between today or tomorrow, but that's not due until the end of the class, which is next week Friday. But I'll give you until the end of July, okay, to submit that final paper. Yes, Avril.
Sir, I sent you a direct message. I'm not sure if you saw it. I sent you twice. As also, I'm getting feedback from JTS, a student who went there today and said that class would have extended. Well, I'm not sure. The exam would have put off until the 1st of August. Are you aware of that?
Oh, no. Oh, wow. That's what the message you sent me?
No. Remember, my group was supposed to present today.
Oh my!
We have still not presented.
Why didn't you guys say something to me? I keep forgetting.
Sir,
Oh
because
my God.
for sure, I thought you remember, and then I don't know, I just didn't want to interrupt your session, but I sent you a
Oh,
direct message on more than one
yes,
occasion.
and I just, oh my God. You guys have to present on Wednesday. Well, that means we may have an extra class then. Is that the case?
Sir,
On
I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, because one of the things that I'm experiencing within my group is that the individuals are living in some areas in Jamaica that they have no internet connection, and so even for this evening, I was the only one who was on class, as I would have sent you the message earlier. So I am not sure how we're gonna work it out. I'm
and they can't.
hoping that. Pardon me, sir?
Oh, wow, wow. And they can't use a phone or something?
That's what I'm saying. They're having some challenges. None of them are in class today. Unless if I'm the only one that would
Well,
present
okay.
it on the group on behalf of them, because they really would have did their part.
Yeah, fine, fine. We'll just have to go ahead with the presentation because we have to present to you. I need to hear from your group. That's fine. So Wednesday, the first thing we will do is to hear from, we will hear you, you will present at 7. We will start at 7:05. Okay, but I need all the students to be here on time so that you can present. Hopefully your other group members will be there and they can help you. After that, we will go through that quickly, and then I'm going to ask the presenter to present on Haiti, to discuss Haiti with you quickly. After we discuss Haiti, then we will go through the last hour of the class. We will go through. So the first hour, the group hopefully your presentation is 30 minutes. If you present for 30 minutes, then I can go straight into having the guest lecturer, the guest presenter talk to us. And then after that, we can go over the quiz.